The collapse of materialism, science at the threshold of a deeper reality. One introduction, the assumption beneath the modern worldview. Modern science rests on a quiet but powerful assumption. Everything that exists is physical. Everything real must be measurable. Everything that cannot be quantified must be considered unreal. This worldview, materialism, became dominant during the Enlightenment to separate scientific inquiry from theology. It was a useful tool, but useful tools are often mistaken for truth. Today, materialism is not collapsing because of philosophy, it is collapsing because of physics. Across quantum theory, information science, cosmology, and the study of consciousness, evidence now points to a universe fundamentally composed not of inert matter but of fields, information, geometry, and relational processes. This chapter explores the scientific landscape that is forcing this shift and the metaphysical implications quietly woven within it. 2. Materialism and the Age of Empiricism. Classical science defined reality as objective, measurable, observer and dependent, reducible to material components. Empiricism, only measurement yields truth, became dogma. Yet the breakthroughs that reshaped science were often not empirical. Einstein's relativity emerged from reasoning, not measurement. Maxwell's equations predicted electromagnetic waves long before detection. Schrödinger's equation was a theoretical bridge into the unknown. Dirac's mathematics revealed antimatter before anyone observed it. The greatest discoveries arose when scientists trusted the coherence of thought over the limits of instruments. Empiricism is powerful, but reality is not confined to what current tools can detect. 3. Cracks in the materialist framework. 3.1 Max Planck and the End of Solid Matter. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, made a statement that sounds metaphysical but is scientifically literal. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. A commonly cited paraphrase captures the sentiment, there is no matter as such. Planck did not mean matter is an illusion. He meant matter is not the foundational substance we imagine it to be. Quantum physics forced him to the conclusion that consciousness cannot be dismissed as epiphenomenal. 3.2 Quantum mechanics, the dissolution of the classical world. Quantum theory reveals that particles do not have definite properties until measured. Superposition allows multiple potentials to coexist. Entanglement establishes correlations without physical connection. Local realism, the foundation of materialism, fails experimental tests. Matter at its root behaves more like information and possibility than substance. This is not metaphysical speculation, it is experimental physics. 3.3 Quantum field theory, fields first, matter second. In quantum field theory, particles are ripples, quantized excitations within underlying fields. These fields pervade all space, are continuous, are abstract mathematical entities, and are not made of matter. Matter becomes an emergent behavior rather than a building block. The universe begins to look less like a machine and more like a structured pattern of excitation. 4. Information, the new foundation of physical reality. 4.1 The rise of the informational universe. Black hole thermodynamics, quantum computing, and holographic dualities all point to a radical idea. Information is more fundamental than matter or energy. Example, black hole entropy, scales of surface area, not volume. The holographic principle suggests 3D space emerges from 2D information. Quantum information theory treats all physical processes as transformations of qubits. John Wheeler expressed this paradigm succinctly: it from bit. This statement is not mystical. It means that physical stuff emerges from informational relationships. 4.2, a universe built on codes, not atoms. In this paradigm, particles are informational states. Forces are transformations of information. Space-time emerges from entanglement structure. Reality is relational, not absolute. This is where science begins to sound like the metaphysics of old, not because mysticism intrudes into science, but because science is approaching the same foundational truth from another angle. 5. Geometry, vibration, and the structure of existence. String theory, though speculative, introduces two important insights. 1. Matter is vibration. 2. Vibration emerges from geometry. The patterns of vibration determine what particles exist, their masses, their charges, and their interactions. The universe is fundamentally a harmonic structure, not a material one. Matter is not primary, vibration is, and vibration arises from shapes embedded in higher dimensional space. Geometry precedes form. Form arises from frequency. Frequency expresses information. This is where physics quietly begins to mirror metaphysical cosmology. 6. The observer, the boundary between potential and reality. Quantum experiments make one thing unavoidably clear: observation affects outcomes. The universe is not wholly separate from the act of observing it. This does not require consciousness to create reality in a mystical sense, but it does require abandoning the materialist idea of an observer-independent universe. The observer selects outcomes, collapses potential into actuality, and participates in physical processes. This is the end of passive realism. Physics now describes reality as interactive. The universe is not a silent machine, it is a responsive process. 7. The emerging paradigm, a unified non-material reality. Combining insights from quantum physics, information theory, and geometry, a new scientific worldview is taking shape. Matter is not fundamental, structure is. Information precedes physical form. Observation is woven into the fabric of reality. Consciousness is not accidental byproduct, but a participant in the universe. The universe behaves less like a machine and more like a self-organizing field of relationships. This is not mysticism entering science, it is science outgrowing a 19th century worldview. Materialism served an era. Now it limits the questions science is capable of asking. The frontier of knowledge demands a more encompassing paradigm, one where physics and metaphysics begin to converge. 8. Conclusion, science at the threshold of the real. Materialism is dissolving not through belief but through evidence. The more deeply scientists study reality, the less material it becomes. The universe reveals itself as procedural, informational, geometric, relational, participatory, and perhaps fundamentally conscience-friendly. Science is not losing its rigor, it is rediscovering its reach. What is emerging is a worldview in which matter is a temporary expression. Information is the substance. Consciousness is irreducible, and reality is an ever unfolding act of self-reflection. This is the closing of one age of understanding and the opening of another, and it stands perfectly aligned with the deeper vision articulated in Mirror of Nothingness.